These secrets are so secret that they don't even want you to know them. Now that I think about it, that's kind of what a secret is. What is up, people? Dunna here, and today we're talking about my favorite Sony A6500 hacks or tips or features that I think you can really benefit from. And make sure to stay right to the end because the bonus tip is a special one. Let's hop right into it. Tip number one has to do with manual focus. Everyone kind of beat up on the A6500 for its touchscreen capabilities or lack thereof. They wish that they could get around the menus and that kind of stuff using the touchscreen, but when they couldn't, they were a little disappointed by that. However, the touchscreen can actually still be quite powerful. One thing that a lot of people don't seem to know is that when you're in manual focus mode, if you double tap on the screen, it'll actually zoom in and do the focus assist function so that you can grab your focus even better. This is a function that you can program to start immediately when you try to manual focus, or you can have it set to a button so it'll zoom in when you press that button. But it's pretty cool to be able to double tap anywhere on the screen and it'll zoom in to that point. If you want to zoom back out to your regular one, you just double tap again and it'll come back out to normal. And as an added bonus, if you double tap and you're zoomed in and you want to move to another part of your frame, you can actually swipe just like you would on your phone to move the frame around. Pretty cool, right? Tip number two is clear image zoom. Clear image zoom is something that's really handy for people who either shoot JPEGs or they shoot video. If you have it turned on, you have to go into a menu and turn on clear image zoom, and it allows you to zoom in up to 2 times with very little loss in your quality. So when you're taking video, let's say you have a prime lens on, let's say you're using the 30mm Sigma, you can actually zoom in and make that look like a 60mm all within that one lens. And as an added little bonus, if you want to do a smooth zoom while you're recording video, you can actually hold the right side of the little spinning circle and it'll zoom in smoothly. So you can turn your prime lens into a zoom lens, just like that. Tip number three is one of my favorites, and it's geared towards hybrid shooters, so people who shoot both photos and video. Like myself, I'm sure you've been in lots of situations where you're flipping back and forth between using the movie mode and the photo mode. Now, what I find easiest is if I just keep it in manual mode, I can still shoot video. It doesn't work the other way around, so if you're in movie mode, you can't take photos. So I leave mine in manual mode a lot, but I also like to use picture profiles when I'm shooting video. I don't want to see those same picture profiles applied when I'm shooting photos, so I have to keep switching back and forth on the picture profile from the one that I want to nothing. For example, if you're shooting S-Log in video and then you flip over, you want to do some photos, you're gonna see S-Log and you don't wanna see that. You wanna expose properly for your raw image. Now, one way that I found you can get around this is if you choose your picture profile that you wanna shoot your videos in, and then afterwards turn on silent shooting. Now, on the A6500, they don't allow picture profiles at the same time as silent shooting. So what happens is if you're in manual mode, it turns off the picture profile. But as soon as you hit the record button to start shooting a video, it will re-enable the picture profile because there's no longer a need for the silent shooting. So when you're taking videos, the picture profile is applied, and when you're taking stills, the picture profile is not there. Now, as long as you're okay with silent shooting, which I can't think of a reason why you wouldn't be, then you're good to go. Tip number four is something that people don't seem to know you can do, is to actually run your camera with a portable charger. So for example, something like this guy, if you can strap this onto your tripod and plug a USB cable into the USB on your A6500, you can actually run your camera using the power of this instead of the internal battery. So if you're worried about the batteries running out while you're, let's say, filming yourself like this, you can just plug it right in and you'll have lots of battery power. Where I find this particularly helpful is when I'm live streaming. When I'm live streaming, I plug my camera into my computer and I stream using it, but I'm not actually recording it. So I'm not limited by the 30-minute recording limit, but the battery will run out pretty quick if I was actually to just let it run. So I turn it into video mode, I plug it into external power, and then it'll let me run for a long time. With one of those kind of batteries, it'll let me run for hours. Tip number 5 is actually something that I found out from another YouTuber named Gerald Undone. He was doing a video on his A7 III I think it was on the A7 III, about how he uses the autofocus / manual focus hold button to grab focus and then set it in manual. So if you don't want it accidentally hunting and you want to just set your focus and then leave it, what you can actually do is set a custom button, one of the custom buttons on your camera, to AF/MF hold. I use it on the AEL button, or auto exposure lock button. Set your camera into manual focus mode, and then as long as you are holding down that button, it will temporarily go into autofocus mode. So if you press the shutter halfway down, it will find focus. Then when you let go of the button, it will snap back into manual focus, holding the place of the focus that you chose. So if you don't trust yourself when it comes to manual focusing your camera, and you trust the autofocus of the camera, you can temporarily grab autofocus and then let go and go back into manual focus. And then you can make fine adjustments if you want to from there. It's quite handy if you're shooting like an interview style thing. You can get your subject to sit down, grab autofocus, let it go into manual focus, and then just leave it. Provided that they're not moving around too much, you should be good to go. Number 6 is actually maybe a well-known feature, but not enough people are using it, and it's something called eye autofocus. Now, anytime you talk to someone who shoots portraits, they'll tell you that the most important thing that you want to focus on is the eye. That is what will engage people with the subject on screen, is you want them looking at their eyes, so you want to make sure that the eye is in focus. Now, what you can do is map this to a custom button. I like to use the center button, which is the button in the middle of the spinning wheel on the back. And then when you hold that down, it'll search for an eye. And if it can't find an eye, it'll go out to a face. Then while you're holding that button, you want to snap your pictures. Pretty awesome, right? You don't even have to worry about manual focus or any of that kind of stuff. It's going to automatically lock onto an eye. Number 7 is something that a lot of people complain about, and they don't know that there's a fix for it. And that is high heat auto turn off, or what people most commonly refer to as overheating. The Sony cameras are built in such a way that they get really hot inside and they have to shut down before they damage the camera. Now, that being said, on the older Sony cameras, the problem was that they would shut down really early. Now, how they address this problem is they actually made a new function called auto power off temp, and you can toggle this function. So what you want to do is in your menu, you go to tab 6, go to page 2, you want to find the function that says auto power off temp, and you're going to choose high. Now, what this basically does is it tells your camera not to turn off when it starts to think it's overheating and let it get to a way higher temperature before it turns off. Now, with this function on, I've had the little high temperature symbol come up on me a number of times, but it's never turned off the camera on me. And usually when I do these kind of sit down things, I'm running for 20, 30 minutes at a time and never had a problem with high temperature. I've done long days, lots of shooting in high heat situations, and never had a problem. The 8th tip or feature or hack or whatever you want to call it is something that I just found out about, or I just started using anyway, and it's called S&Q, or slow and quick. Essentially what this allows you to do is record at one frame rate and play it back at another one right inside the camera. So for those of you who know, that's how we do slow motion or time lapses. I think this is a great function mostly for time lapses. If you just need to get a quick and dirty time lapse and you don't need to have any kind of fancy color grading or anything like that, and you don't need to get raw images, this is a great way to do it. So to start with, you're gonna go into your menu, you're gonna go to tab 2, page 1, you're gonna choose movie/S&Q motion, then change it from whatever movie mode you're on and go down to the S&Q option. So often I'll choose S&Q manual. It gives you all the same things as you have when you're in manual mode, but now we're in S&Q. Then go back to that same page and we're gonna go to S&Q settings. Now there are 2 settings on this page. There's the record setting and the frame rate. The record setting is telling you how it's going to play back, so what the final speed is going to be, and the frame rate is telling you how it's going to record. So when we shoot slow motion, we shoot at, let's say, 120 frames per second, and then in the software afterwards, we slow it down so it's only playing at 24 frames per second. That's how we get slow motion. And then the opposite, when we do time lapses, we shoot photos, let's say 1 every second, and then we play that back 24 frames per second, so it's 24 times as fast as we shot it. Now, if you're doing, let's say, a time lapse inside S&Q, what you do is you choose a frame rate of 1 frame per second. So it's gonna take 1 photo per second. It's actually shooting a video at 1 frame per second, and then we're gonna choose the record setting of 24 frames per second. So you set up your shot, you hit record, it's recording at 1 frame per second. You can see that it looks all choppy, but then when you play it back in the camera, it's a time lapse. It's already sped up 24 times. Couple of downsides to this is that it's only shooting at 1080p, so you're only getting 50 megabits per second, which is the same as the normal 1080p, but you're not getting the 4K that you might want to record, and you're not getting the raw quality if you were to record a time lapse the more traditional way. Also, there's no sound, which you wouldn't have in the traditional way of doing a time lapse either, and I can't think of why you would want the sound of a time lapse anyway. It sounds terrible. Now, one little bonus tip that I think everyone should be using, and you can use with a lot of the things that I've been talking about today, is the memory recall. So on the top of the camera on the modes dial, there are 2 settings that are memory recalls. Memory recall 1 and memory recall 2. So once you get all your settings and whatever mode you're in all set, and I like to use this with the S&Q option so that I have quick access to it, you set all those settings, and then you're gonna go into your menu, you're gonna go to tab 1, page 4, choose the option that says camera 1, camera 2, memory. It doesn't actually say camera, but it's got a little symbol of a camera. Choose which memory slot you want to save those settings in, and now when you change the dial to that setting, it'll automatically remember all sorts of things. What kind of mode you're in, what white balance, what focus mode you chose, a whole bunch of stuff. Almost everything that you can possibly choose gets saved into that setting. So if you're using S&Q every once in a while, like I do, you can choose, let's say number 2 to be your S&Q, and then it's a quick flip into that mode and you're good to go, ready to shoot a time lapse. Or let's say you have a certain mode that you like for videos and a certain mode that you like for photos, you can set one of those on the memory modes, and then it's a quick switch just to get right to it. Now I want to turn it over to you guys. Do you have any hacks or tips or anything for the Sony A6500 or whatever camera you're using? Drop a comment down below and let us all know, because we gotta share these kinds of things. We need to help each other out. All these little hacks and tips, they make life a lot easier. So share it around, show some love. If you had fun, make sure to give this video a thumbs up. It really does help tell YouTube to share the video around to more people. If you want to be friends, click the little circle. You can subscribe to this channel, hit the bell notification so you don't miss a video. If you want to watch some more, here's another video. I think you'll really like it, and I'll see you next time.